Each year we try and do something special in our program. Some of you may remember that we adapted the words to a song called High Ground last year. We introduced a climate action tool called the Carbon Caterpillar. This year we organized a public opinion poll with our research sponsor Stratcom. You helped shape that survey earlier this year, and I would like now to invite Matt Smith and Stephanie Lynn from Stratcom to the stage. As you may know, Stratcom donated 5 questions on a BC Online survey, which was shared with 1,500 British Columbians in late February, and they're here to tell us about the results.
I'm Stephanie, and this is Matt. Okay. We are delighted to be here with you, and thank you for the creative opportunity to sponsor through sharing research, and that is our task for the next handful of minutes. In terms of methods and reporting, this online survey was fielded from the close of February through the first week of March and is based on a sample of over 1,500 British Columbia residents that are statistically weighted. Online polls don't report margin of error, but would be within 2.5% as we're moving through the charts. As David described, the survey questions were decided through a brief survey with early registrants of this conference. Thank you if you were one of those people. And through that process, we then determined what the questions would be that we would ask of the full population. The main issues selected by the high ground registrants were housing affordability, poverty alleviation, green jobs and green economy, fentanyl and the opioid crisis, climate change and action, transportation, and the wealth gap. Those were the issues that were most important to this group of people. And the 5 that you will see us outline together now is around affordability, housing crisis, opioid crisis, and climate. When it comes to top issues in British Columbia today, we did not ask that in the survey, but wanted to share with you the findings that emerge across other research we're doing so you have context. And really the top issues that continue in British Columbia are around housing, affordable housing and rent, that continues to pop near the top. Healthcare and social services is up near the top as well. Cost of living and affordability, increasingly wondering when people use the term affordability, what is it that they mean? And environment, climate change, weather is moving up in terms of an issue of high importance for British Columbians. And then there are issues more generally around the economy and taxes. As described, we're going to move through a handful with you now. Looking at affordability, we asked people, in thinking about household economic security for you, your household economic security, which of the following expenses concern you the most? And gave a number of options. What we can see here is that the first green is the top ranked issue. People could rank 6, and these are ranked in this slide by which was your number 1 ranking. Rent and mortgage, in terms of thinking of your household economic security, which expenses concern you the most, rent and mortgage was ranked number 1 by 36% of respondents. The next most was taxes at 18 and food prices at 9. When we reorder by cumulative, ranked 1 through 6 together, the previous slide was your number 1 ranking. This is cumulatively all of them. Food prices pops to the top, and then you see rent and mortgage. Okay? Some say that in order to, this is a question 2 different ways, 2 statements, which is closest to your opinion? Some people say that in order to address the housing crisis, local governments need to introduce more rules, regulations, and programs on developers to ensure that adequate housing types are being built in order to meet specific local demands. Or other people say we should let developers build as much housing as possible in order to increase supply. Which is closest to your opinion? Okay, by far, 75% said the closer opinion for them was governments need to introduce rules, regulations, and programs. They are asking, the public, 75% are asking for engagement by governments on this issue. And when we look at how this appears based on values or sets of vote intention affiliation, this opinion that governments should engage in the issue of housing is even greater for those who identify as either NDP or Green voters at 85%. However, when you have a number that's 75% overall, it is also true that those who identify as Liberal or Conservative Party voters, also the majority of them believe that government needs to engage.
I'll just take us through the last few. So now we turn to the opioid crisis, as you all know well. Is very serious in BC. In 2018, 1,489 overdoses were recorded. 86% of them involved fentanyl. So the question we asked is next. So we were trying to understand public's opinion, public willingness to pay to increase services to address the opioid crisis. So the question was, some communities have approved a property tax increase of 1% or less to fund extra support for police and fire workers in dealing with fentanyl and opioid overdose crisis. Would you support such an increase? And as I think we all know, Vancouver in December 2016, they had a 0.5% increase of property tax for this exact reason. And the results are that we have, it's basically split as far as 39% total support, 35% total opposed, and quite a big group, 21%, that they don't know, they can't decide. It is important when looking at this kind of a question that has a scale from strongly support down to strongly opposed, that you do pay a little more attention to the stronglies. Those polls is where you'll find people that have a really strong opinion, they're willing to perhaps take action on it or voice that opinion. So while it's almost equal as far as total support, you do see strongly opposed is 5 points above strongly support. If we look at it across, giving away all our slides. No, that's not your fault. Okay, so just looking at some of those crosstabs, so same question, but looking at it as far as the regions go, you do see a difference of opinion. You see the regions of Vancouver, Vancouver Island having slightly more support. Turning to the topic of climate change, so we asked a couple questions on climate change, and a few of these we actually asked in a similar survey in 2017, so we're able to track and see some change over time. So our first question is just around concern. So we asked people to indicate on a scale of 0 to 10, how concerned are they about the issue of climate change? And what we found is that as a mean, 6.8 is the result on an 11-point scale, but what is encouraging is only 11% are in the bottom three there, as far as they're really not concerned at all. And as far as 0 is only 5%, that's quite positive, of course. 49% are concerned, but in particular, very concerned is 22%. So the plurality, the biggest number of respondents said they are very concerned. If we look at this compared to 2017, so you can see 2017 in blue, 2019 in green. In many ways, it has not changed much. If you look at it as far as the pie charts, it basically looks like it hasn't changed at all. There's just a little bit of change as far as the sort of extremes. So 2017, we had 8% saying not at all concerned, so it's gone down a few percent, now at 5%. And if we look to the other extreme, it's gone 2% more people are saying they're very concerned about the issue. So, but really that's not much change. So it's a bit of a flat line as far as concern. So looking again at crosstabs, looking at regions, so we don't have the full scale, we're just showing you the concerned and not concerned, so the top 3 and the bottom 3. So we see a similar trend as far as Vancouver, Vancouver Island, registering above the total population's level of concern on this issue. And again, we see NDP and Green voters being the highest group, the highest crosstab or subgroup that we looked at as far as their concern on the issue of climate change. And looking at it at gender, we crosstab all of our results. We generally just show the ones that actually show change. So if it wasn't up here earlier, it's because there wasn't a significant difference between one of those genders or one of the other age brackets. But on this one, we do see a pretty big change or difference between female and male as far as concerned. And by the age groups, this is quite common that you see the kind of younger and the older most concerned on this issue. And those in the middle generally seem to be the least concerned. I mean, they are still concerned, but relative to the other age brackets, they seem to be the least. Next, we asked how, on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it for the BC government to address, to deal with the issue of climate change? The results actually are quite similar to the previous one as far as concern. 12% not say it's not important. It was 11% that said they were not concerned. We have 47% saying it is important. We had 49% saying they are concerned. So it mirrors as far as the concern and the desire or the belief that the BC government should take action. Again, if we look at some of the crosstabs, we see the same trend as far as Vancouver and Vancouver Island being considering it to be more important than the rest of the population, that the government does take action. And again, we see NDP and Green being most supportive of government taking action. So our last questions gets a little more personal for the respondents. So asking them, we asked respondents to pick one of these, which is closest to you, how you see the issue and what you'd be willing to do. So we have 25% that said, I think climate change is an urgent problem that governments and people should take significant action to reverse, even if it means tax increases or significant lifestyle changes. So a quarter of respondents, quarter of the population would say, yes, that is closest to how I see this issue and how I think we should address it and how much I'm personally willing to. We have a quarter of respondents say, I'm concerned about climate change and I'm prepared to make some lifestyle changes and pay slightly more taxes, but I think there are other priorities that are more important. The biggest group of respondents, 40%, say, I am concerned about climate change, but I don't believe it should be solved by increasing taxes on average people like me. It's a problem, but I don't want to pay to solve it. Only 5% say they're not concerned about climate change, and only 5% say they don't believe that climate change is a significant issue. Before we close, we'll just compare this to the 2017 where we asked the same question. Unfortunately, we do see a slight slip in responses as far as the more dedicated, more willing to take action. So we see a drop of 6% in the top from 31 to 25 saying, you know, I would pay more taxes, I would accept significant lifestyle changes. We see a drop of 2% for those who say I would make some lifestyle changes and I'd pay slightly more taxes. And we see a drop of 8% for those who say they are concerned, but I don't think I have to pay for it. So they're not the results we were hoping, but again, if we just have a quick look at the regions, we see largely the same results and trends as far as Vancouver and Vancouver Island being more dedicated to paying more and making some changes in their lifestyles, and saw the same again around the vote intent, and again with gender and age, we see a similar trend that we saw earlier. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.